What is truth, and how do we find truth in a world of deception? Are there biblical truths about our world and our lives that we can trust? And who are the key players in the end times? What does the Bible say about the Middle East, Iran, China, and Russia? And is there proof for what Scripture says? What do recent archaeological exploration tell us about the Bible? Who were the Anunnaki? What are angels, demons, and the Nephilims? Will the Nephilims return? Are there interdimensional beings, and how do they relate to the Bible? Stick around as we dive into Scripture for more answers in this episode of Mission Truth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another scintillating episode of Mission Truth. I am your host, Trevor, along with my partner here, Nick. And as usual with all of our Mission Truth episodes, we start off with a statement that we then kind of discuss throughout the episode, and then we come up with a answer on our truth meter, which we will discuss later on in the episode. But the question that we're dealing with today is actually something that is current events and also historical. But the question is Israel still God's chosen people? So why do we ask that question? We kind of discussed that before we started here. There's a replacement theory. If you're
Replacement theology,
not theory. Replacement theology, which basically states that ever since Christ died on the cross, of course, we're looking at this from a Christian's perspective, and with Israel being God's chosen people, or the Jewish people. I mean, it doesn't matter who you talk to around the world. That's the perspective that you have to look at Israel from, because that is their roots. Everybody knows their history. So that's the way we're looking at it. And from a Christian perspective, that is where when Jesus came and died on the cross, and everybody was then included in the inheritance, the family of God,
grafted in, or
the replacement theology is that it's not the Jewish people, it's the Christian.
The idea was that because of what the quote unquote Jews did to Christ and their rejection of Christ, they have, for lack of a better term, been excommunicated from the promises of God, and that the church has inherited the promises that were promised to Abraham, which I guess we got to go back and talk about what the promise to Abraham was. And it was what? So he would make his seed great.
His descendants would be numbered as the stars of the sand on the ocean. They would be a great nation. Among forever. Yes, forever. And I think there was one.
There's several of them, and
you'll find them all in Genesis.
But the crux of the idea is that God made a promise to Abraham that his seed would endure for eternity, and some Christians have taken that or interpreted that to mean that Christians have taken over that promise because of what happened with the Jews. And that's become very, it was it's been around a long time, but it's become more fashionable with the things that are going on in Israel. And so we kind of wanted to kind of talk about that and maybe discuss how that may not be true.
So, and I look at it, we're both Bible believing Christians, and I always look at it from, I believe that Jesus died on the cross, and that he rose again on the third day. He's alive. He's still alive. That's the basis of our faith. And I'm pretty sure that he was born a Jew, he died a Jew, and he rose again a Jew. And he says he's coming back. And from what the Bible says, he's coming back. The Mount of Olives is where he's going to step foot. He's coming back to Jerusalem. He's not coming back to anywhere else in the world. He's coming back to Jerusalem. That is case closed for me, but I am apparently the minority. I don't know what else you have heard, Nick, as far as that's my clarification for the Jewish people are still God's people.
Well, let's look at what happened historically. So you have, you have the crucifixion of Christ, which happened somewhere around 33 AD. There's some debate as to which exact year it was,
because the calendars changed and all that.
And then you have the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in, I believe it's 70 AD.
70 AD, yeah.
And basically at that point, the Jews were expelled from the land. And until 1948, while there were some Jewish people present in the historical land of Israel, it did not exist as its own independent state. It was part of multiple different empires. It was a part of, I believe, the Ottoman Empire for a long time.
Yep.
And so in some ways I can kind of understand maybe the medieval or the late, even the church during the Renaissance or Enlightenment kind of, Israel's not around and hadn't been around for, by that time, by the Renaissance, at least 1,500 years.
Right.
Up until 1948, we're really talking more about like 1,800 years.
Which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
When you think about historical context.
And so, what do you do with the promises of God when Israel doesn't exist anymore? And so I don't blame them for having that sort of theology because it sort of made sense at the time. The problem is they didn't look or they didn't believe some of the prophecies that show up in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 37 specifically, but there's a few others that are strewn out. But when Israel came back into the land, just as the Bible said it would, can a nation be born in a day? Well, it was born in a single day by a dictate from the United Nations in 1948.
Yep.
Israel became a nation again. And that should have been, I think, a trigger for people to understand that maybe God really was talking about Israel because, and I know I'm getting a little long-winded here, but Ezekiel, you're familiar.
Yep.
Can you kind of describe what's going on? Just so I'm not talking the entire time.
It's okay.
What's going on in Ezekiel 37?
So he's talking about the Valley of the Dry Bones. And it's a vision that Ezekiel had where he comes and it's a valley of bones. And then the bones are put back together as a skeleton. And then the sinew and the muscle come back on.
Yeah.
And then the skin comes back on. Then the breath comes back into the body. And basically, the short of it is that is a picture of the state of Israel coming back and existing again after its punishments have been.
And it actually goes even further to talk about the spiritual rejuvenation of Israel. And there's also, I believe, in that chapter, a promise that it would never be removed.
It would never be removed
from the earth again.
Correct.
That's how we know it's a current / future prophecy, which I believe is still in the midst of being fulfilled, is because we see this promise that they will never be removed again, that they will never be. And that, of course, hasn't happened because the last time they were in the land, they were removed from the land.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have, that you also see, I think, another thing, because a lot of the argument that you get from some of your talking heads now is that, well, they're not godly people. They don't, they're a secular nation probably more than anything. And then those that do believe in God are not Christians largely. And so you have your Christian talking heads. Y'all know who I'm talking about, that are saying, well, they're not Christian, so therefore they're not God's people. But what they've failed to realize is that prophecy within the Valley of the Dry Bones, the last thing that happens is the breath of life is breathed back into them.
Yes.
God's spirit is breathed back into them. They come back as a unbelieving nation.
Yep.
And I think that's where we are in the prophecy today. Now, granted, prophecy is always looking back. You really can't, we can speculate, but we can't, make definite, I don't think we can make definite statements until everything's fulfilled and we can look back and say, okay, yeah, this ticks all the boxes. But I think we're in the middle of it now. I think we're in the last stages, I would say, of, and the Bible talks about like Israel is not really going to be rebirthed spiritually until the tribulation period. and the 144,000
Right.
Jews that go around preaching the gospel. And then he talks about all Israel will be saved. And so I think we're in the midst of that prophecy right now. Not to turn this into a prophecy podcast, because I enjoy it. But I think we're taking a wrong-headed look when we say that God has dispensed with his people, because it's obvious in the scriptures they have a role to play in the end
And
times.
if you look at other scriptures, not just in Ezekiel, but you talk about where Palestine, Israel, depending on what you're going to talk about it, when Israel was not present, it was a deserted wasteland.
Yeah.
And the Bible actually prophesies that when the children of Israel return back to that land, it will start to sprout anew.
Yeah, you're talking about, I believe it's Amos chapter 3. And the only reason I know that is because I taught on it last Wednesday night.
and it will start to, and one of the prophecies is like, there will be trees in that area that aren't native to that. They'll just spring out of the ground, and the Dead Sea will split in two. And
that's a different place.
Yes, it is. And fresh
one.
water will start coming back to the Dead Sea. That's happening in front of our eyes. And this stuff, I mean, now when I was a kid and I read this happening, I mean, like, well, wow, how's this going to happen? Yeah. And I've actually seen that come to fruition in my lifetime, my short lifespan.
Ocra's actually a huge exporter of fruit now.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, they were having a problem when after the October 7th happened and Hezbollah started shooting all the rockets from north, and they evacuated the north part of Israel. One of the things they were worried about is they were right in the middle of harvest season, and all the workers were gone, and they thought that they were going to have a loss of this huge fruit crop. Yeah. And so they had people actually risking their lives to come up to work in the orchards to try to pull as much of the fruit off of that tree before it all rotted on the vine. There's actually a couple of guys from a place called Hayavel, which is there in Judea and Samaria. They're Americans that have moved over there. They're Christian Americans that have moved over there sort of as to support the rebirth of Israel. And they went up, they had a group. The Israel guys have a podcast called the Israel Guys. If you don't know it, you should probably check it out. But they live there in the land, and they're there all the time. Their podcast, they actually have two guys that are Jewish rabbis that they talk to. Super cool. They're good friends of these guys, and it's really great. But they did some work up there. It's just amazing to see what is actually, Israel's economy is booming right now. Their stock market is, as the kids say, off the chain right now. And
cooked.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, is that the new one? Maybe I'm a couple of decades. Maybe I'm a decade behind now.
It depends on what generation you're talking to, I think.
But anyway, but things, I mean, despite having a war on Hezbollah, dealing with the Hamas issue, now Iran, they are prospering. It's quite incredible to see. And I think that as another kind of tick on the mark that shows God is not done with Israel.
Correct.
And so, yeah.
So with all that being said, now we've just laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
For our question is Israel still God's chosen people?
Yep.
Now, I kind of want to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
To kind of discuss what we've seen in modern events right now.
Right.
What's going on with Israel and the Middle East. Of course, when we're filming this is, we're in the middle of the Iran conflict with America bombing Iran and Israel. And it's only America and Israel. They're the only two that are in it. Although I think there's a lot of shadow stuff going on behind the scenes with Russia and China and them being involved with it as well. But when you look at what's happening here, and we were talking about Bible prophecy, we don't want to get too deep into the Bible prophecy part of it.
Yeah.
But if this happens the way I think it's going to happen, with Iran actually becoming a free nation and Israel, we already have the Abraham Accords where all of these Arab nations that were never even talking to Israel in the past. I mean, this is the crazy thing. Most people don't realize is that if you lived in Egypt or Libya or I think there's two other, Saudi Arabia, you couldn't even call Israel on the telephone. Like, it didn't even exist. And after the Abraham Accords, now there's peace in the region. There's all this peace in the region, and Israel is spearheading this peace.
Yeah.
And so if Iran falls, which I believe it will fall, and becomes an independent republic. I mean, the Iranian people, when you look at history, it used to be called Persia. Before that, it was Elam. And there's also a prophecy about Elam being restored in the Bible as well. When that happens and things move forward, in my mind and from what I see in the Bible, it's
you're talking about Jeremiah 49 specifically for those that
if you
are interested and want to go look it up. You'll get Bible teachers that will tell you that was actually fulfilled during the takeover from Babylon, when Babylon came in and destroyed some of Persia, or Elam specifically, not Persia, Elam, because it is like Persia and Elam make up Iran. It's actually like the Persians, like the northern part, and Elam is the southwestern part. But the point is that a lot of the tick marks from Jeremiah 49 are missing. They're not. When you go back and really study what happened, there really was no real like destruction of the princes and all. And so I think I'm convinced with the modern day things we're seeing that we are seeing the fulfillment of Jeremiah 49. But I think more importantly, and I can't remember if it's in Isaiah or if it's in a different one, but where it talks about the heavy stone, he says, I will make Israel a heavy stone. And any of those who try to heave it away will basically be crushed by it. Yeah. The point behind it is I'm going to bring Israel back into the land, and I'm going to make them the center of attention. And it's going to be an irritant to the people of the world, and they're going to try to get rid of it. And every time they try to get rid of it, they're going to end up destroying or hurting themselves. And I think when you look at what's happened, I mean, even going back to the what is it, the 6 Day War, back in the 60s,
68 or 67.
Anytime anybody has really tried to mess with Israel since they've been back in the land, it has not gone well for them.
No, they've gotten bigger, they've gotten more control of the area, they've gained more influence.
And now you see what's happened with Hamas and what's happened with Hezbollah to a large extent, and now Iran. It's just they're taking a beating right now, and I just can't help but hear a prophecy in my head when I turn on the TV. It's just incredible.
Yeah. So I think we've presented a pretty well-rounded case, in my opinion, to answer the question: is Israel still God's chosen people? And our true scale, again, we have proven, plausible,
plausible
deniability, or probable deniability.
Yeah.
Right. Proven, probable, plausible deniability, and preposterous.
Yeah.
Get it right one of these days.
Yeah, we don't use teleprompters. We're professionals.
Not yet.
So
not yet. We will probably have a teleprompter in the future to keep us. No, I'm sorry.
Supposed to
That's
tell
a trade
them
secret. My bad. I wasn't. I know. I'm terrible. So I'm new at this. So with that truth
scale, tell them that either.
Yeah. With this truth scale in mind, and of course, when we're going over these truth scales, personal opinion is going to have some kind of sway. But as we've kind of shown in some of our earlier episodes, absolute truth is very difficult to find. There's actually going to be very, very few of these statements and these questions that we go over that I think we're going to say are proven. Proven. Most of them are going to be below that, but this one in particular, from my perspective, from my opinion, it is straight up proven that Israel is still God's chosen people, and there's nothing that you can say is going to change my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like I said, I tell people, I said, if Israel goes away, I'll renounce my faith in God, because that's how much I strongly believe in what God has said about Israel. And it's been a miracle that they came back to begin with.
Exactly.
When you think about it, their language was gone. Their land was gone. The people were scattered to every
corner,
just like the Bible says.
Yep.
And through probably one of the most horrific things that have ever happened in human history, the Holocaust, God, it's just like God to use the most devastating thing, i.e., his son's dead on the cross, to bring about one of the most wonderful things, which is the resurrection of a people, and in the case of Jesus, the resurrection of any who will call on his name.
Exactly.
So there's you a little bit of the gospel right there.
and kind of leading into that, I always say that God reveals himself in 4 ways.
Yeah.
Number 1 is creation.
Yep.
Number 2 is the children of Israel. Historically, I mean, they go back thousands of years.
Yeah.
That's how God reveals himself through how he's provided for them in their history. The 3rd way is the Christian Bible.
Yep.
And then the 4th way is through Jesus himself.
Yep.
Those are the 4 ways that God reveals himself to us as a people, to the world. And I hope everyone is paying attention. So I think that kind of wraps up our episode here on Israel. And again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hit like, subscribe. And also, if you have a comment, we love comments.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love comments. We need more stuff to talk about.
And dad jokes are welcome too. We might even air those if we have some good dad jokes.
If we get a couple of good ones, we will. It's something I ain't heard before.
Well, I might even make up some. I'm known to do that.
Don't be sending in dad jokes anonymously, Trevor.
Sorry, it's just might be a thing of mine. And also, you can look at our website at Agape TV. That's where a lot of our podcasts are going to be listed, along with some other content.
You can also find our merch. You can find some really cool shirts and stuff for just general Christian themed over there. You can find some other partner podcasts of guys that we're close to that we love a lot and think do a really good job. There's just also, there'll be more and more stuff coming every day. So take a look over there, and I'm sure you'll find something that fits.
We are trying to build good entertainment.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we're entertaining.
And information.
Information. I always like to teach you a little bit, learn something new, but I also
one day we'll have just one segment of him over here playing a harmonica.
That's somebody else.
Sorry. I was just going to throw that out.
I can play the kazoo. I'm really good at the kazoo.
Is that what they call it? Okay.
Yeah, it's the kazoo. So
all right.
Anyway, as we say at the end of every one of our episodes, keep seeking the truth, and the truth will set you free. We'll see you next time.
See you.